Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have Sister Ruth Coleman with us ministering in Honduras. You come tonight. What I've asked her to do is, like we've been doing, we've sort of changed what we're doing with missionaries, and that is having them share a lot of information. So I have asked her to sort of start from the beginning, for those of you who don't know her, and she's going to go through her life and calling a little bit, and where she is now, what she's doing, all of that. So you come. It's wonderful to have you. Girls. The girls have something for you.
This is all raised at VBS for you, from everybody, so that's for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's one of the teenagers and one of the children. They want you to open that up. This is from Vacation Bible School, and this is for you. $2,156. As we were talking, I know that you have a sort of a building fund that you're working on to be able to help yourself, and we'll just let the Lord lead there. Okay? All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all you children and you parents that helped your children with the offering. I appreciate that. That would fill my suitcase up going back. So I'll share a little bit then about how God brought me to Honduras, and after I share all that, I'll jump in with a video so you can get life in Honduras. Well, I grew up in Huntington, Pennsylvania. My dad's a pastor. Well, he's retired-ish now. You don't really retire. You find other ways to serve. You just don't have the title. And so he's still serving. My parents have moved down to Greenville, South Carolina area. And so growing up in a pastor's home, putting connections, Paul Rebert was my youth pastor. And now my brother lives out about 20 minutes from Danville. He lives on the Indiana side of the border, but he goes there to First Baptist, so putting connections together. Got connections with the Rebert family, and connections with the church. I remember staying here overnight on our way down to the wilds as a teenager. Got a chance to sleep on the nursery floor, and the guys got the basement, the girls got the nursery. And so I appreciate the hospitality over the years. I went to Bob Jones. Back up. My dream was always to be a missionary. I had slightly interesting view, though, of what it was to be a missionary. I was going to have a houseboat on Amazon. And then I learned, I don't know, somewhere around 5th grade, that they have anacondas and all that kind of stuff and piranhas. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to the Amazon. And I mean, God works really perfectly, because I had a girl that was with me a year and a half ago. She stayed with me for a year. Her name was Julia, and she grew up in Brazil on the Amazon. And she tells me stories of these tarantulas that she had in her house. And I said, I'm never going to visit you. And I would have packed my bags if I was living down there. She had stories that like coming out of the shower, putting the towel on and finding a tarantula on the towel. I said, nope, God put me in the concrete jungle in Honduras, and he knew that was the perfect spot for me, and I have not seen one live tarantula in my city in my 6 years there. So, yes, I wanted to be a missionary, and I wanted to do the Amazon, and then I wanted to go to Spain because I loved Spanish from a child. I always loved Spanish, and I was trying to do everything I could to learn it. I went to Spain in 10th grade, said, not for me. Another couple in my church took me to Paraguay the following year, my 11th grade year. I said, I like Latin America. And then I went to college, and I went to Bob Jones, and I was a missions major, music minor. Well, missions majors were required to do a 2-month internship. And so I get to the end of my second year, and I have to start talking with my advisor about where I want to go for my internship. So I go to his office, and I'm sitting down with him, and he says, so where do you want to go? You can pick any country in the world. And I said, somewhere in Latin America. He said, Ruth, Latin America's a really big place. You got to narrow it down for me. And I'm hoping he's going to tell me, I have some options here for countries, and then I could pick from something. Nope, he says, you have to tell me a country, and then we'll work out where exactly in that country you're going. So he sends me back to my dorm room, And I am looking up, and I'm typing onto Google, Baptist Missionaries Latin America, and I'm looking at all these different missionary websites. And I looked at a lot of missionary websites, and I found this one website of this couple in Honduras, and their pictures of children just grabbed my attention. And I'm praying, and nothing else is grabbing my attention, so I said, okay, I'm going to Honduras. I went back to my advisor. I said, how about Honduras? And he said, well, I don't know the couple that you found their website. He said, I know this other family, Sam and Maria Conover, who are in Honduras. He said, it's up to you. I can ask them if they know this other family, or I can ask them if they're willing to host you. And I said, let's go with someone you know. And so he asked them, and they said, sure, you can come. Do your internship with us, and now I'm back working with them full time. And that was good. That was, God working details together. It's really funny, though, because when I go visit churches, they say, oh, this is great, the missionaries here. You can talk to the teens and tell them how you've learned God's will for your life. And I said, yeah, I went to Google. God can use anything. Amen. So that is how I got to Honduras, from Google. A little bit more of God's direction along the way, opening and closing doors. But I moved in June of 2017, so I've been in Honduras for 6 years, and I love it there. Aside from the fact that I've never seen a live tarantula, I have learned how to deal with cockroaches. And right before I came back on furlough this year, I came June 27th, just have 3 months here in the States. I came the week I'm starting to pack my suitcase to come back on furlough, and I'm sorting through one of the drawers in my bedroom, and I open the bottom drawer, and I'm pulling out a binder, and I just see this little movement. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I started moving other things slowly out, and yep, there's a cockroach, and I just grabbed my flip-flop and wham. And I was like, wow, I've made the expert missionary status because I didn't scream. And I had a cockroach in my bedroom. So Honduras, yeah, we have cockroaches. There are tarantulas if you go up in the mountains. I had a friend who was about 45 minutes away from me, and she says, oh, Ruth, she's like, I'll have a tarantula over by my house about once a month. And I said, yep, God put me in San Pedro for a reason. But not just because of the bugs. I can't tell you how many times, though, I've been walking down my neighborhood thinking, I finally found my place in the world. And that's God. That's God putting that together, because only God can make those perfect connections and put you right where you need to be. And what you need and what the people around you need, because God puts us to rub shoulders with people first. And it's on purpose when he puts us to rub who we are rubbing. My words are not coming out tonight. God puts us with the people that he wants us to rub shoulders with, and there's not accidents on that. It's what I'm trying to get out. And yeah, God makes me say, oof. And sometimes it looks like it. Then you have my first year. I had only been in Honduras for 6 months, and we had election drama, and they cried fraud. And we had protests that they were burning tires, blocking off roads, looting and burning down buildings. And they called a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. I had been there for 6 months. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I grew up in small town Huntington, which is like 7,000 people. I've never seen anything like this, and everybody's traumatized around me. I'm like, oh. And then they had what they called a cacerolazo, because when they put them into the curfew, the people said, we're still going to protest, and so they'd go out on the streets of the neighborhoods at night and bang pots and pans, and that was their form of protest. And then we had COVID. And I was stuck in my apartment for 5.5 months, and I could only go out every 2 weeks. And they had police checkpoints around the city, so if you went out of your neighborhood and it wasn't your day to be out, you would go to jail for a day. And they would impound your car, and I said, I'm not chancing that. And so COVID was quite the excitement. Then God gave me, God working things together. I had all this solitary confinement. I'm in my apartment for all these months by myself, and it was really hard because ministry-wise, I couldn't do a lot because all the children that I work with, only 2 of them had cell phones with data, and the rest didn't have cell phones at all. And so there was no way for me to continue class. A lot of people here, you went online. Oh, we're going to continue school. We're going to have church online. We would put together, I would record playing the piano. I'd send the audio recording of the hymns for the week. I would send them to one man. Then he would play them and then sing along and record that. And then another guy would type out the words and they'd put it all on, and then someone else would record preaching and they'd put it into one YouTube video and send it out to everybody. And that was our method of having church services for a while, because we couldn't gather. We couldn't get to the church to record at the church. We couldn't do any of that. And so we did with what we could. And then on Wednesdays, we'd have Zoom for the few that could join in online. The kids I worked with couldn't, and so I'm stuck in my apartment. I can't really do a lot. And, oh man, find me afterwards so I can tell you some of the stories from that lockdown, because I have some pretty cool stories and I don't have enough time to share all the stories that I want to, other than I will share one really quick one that I woke up one morning and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. And this happened multiple times that I'm having that feeling. And I come out for breakfast and I open my bedroom door and I go out to my kitchen and all of a sudden there's this bird flying at me. Well, we already established I don't like insects. Well, I don't like in general things flying at me. And so I have this little bird flying at me and I'm ducking. And I'm thinking I have to get a window open so that it can get out. And then the next thought I have, I need to get my bedroom door closed so it doesn't go to my bedroom. Well, it thought ahead of me and flew down my hallway into my bedroom. So I get to my bedroom and the bird is sitting there on my pillow. And I thought, well, I know what I'm doing today. I'm going to be washing my bedding. And then it went into my bathroom and I'm like, oh man, because that's even smaller space. How am I I can't like check where it is, because if I go to the door, it's gonna come flying at me. It finally went out 15 minutes later. And all I could think though was, if God cares about the sparrows, then he cares about me. And here I am in my apartment and these walls are closing in. And God put a sparrow in my apartment and I literally searched every square inch and there's only one little tiny hole that I don't think was possible for a bird to fly into. God put that sparrow into my apartment to remind me that he cares. He cares. So then my next year I had Julia, and Julia came for a whole year, and I think that was God saying, you have spent a lot of alone time, so I'm going to give you fellowship. So I had a housemate for a year. And the day that she left, I was going through kidney stones and a kidney infection. And when I passed the kidney stones, I still had back pain. And maybe some of you heard through my prayer letters that back pain wasn't going when it got worse to the point that last July I could barely walk. And I'm just trying to survive. I went to several different doctors, and I finally get to the point where the one says, okay, well, I'm going to recommend you go to a surgeon, because nothing was helping. And so I said, how about some physical therapy first? So he said, okay, I'll let you go for some physical therapy. And long story, thank you, long story short, short story long, we'll go there. I ended up coming back to the States. I thought I had to come back because of my residency expiring. My lawyer made it sound like I had to leave the country, but that was probably God working again, because he knew I needed to get back. And I thought, well, where am I going to go? Well, I ended up out in Danville, because I thought if I go to my parents, I'm not going to get rest, because there's so many people that I'm going to want to see, or that are going to want to see me. I'm not going to get rest at my parents, so I'll go to my brother's. He lives out 20 minutes from town, doesn't have Wi-Fi, and so it'll be quiet there. I can get rest. And then Pastor Paul, actually, I'm at lunch with Paul and Beth, and they're like, have you gone to a chiropractor here in the States? And I said, nope. I've been to 3 in Honduras. And they said, well, there's one that's connected with our church. And so he calls me an hour after lunch and says, you have an appointment for tomorrow. And I went to that appointment, and the nurse comes in and says, aren't you excited about the procedure the doctor's going to do? And I'm like, what's he going to do? And then she says, he's one of only 500 doctors in the world certified for this. And I'm like, yep, that's God putting me here right where I needed to be. And so he said, all of your back problems are connected with your neck. That was a Wednesday. On Monday, I had another appointment. I went Thursday, and then I went back on Monday, and it was people at church were telling me at First Baptist, Ruth, maybe you should not fly back to Honduras if you're not better. So I'm asking the doctor, what do you recommend? Can I go back to Honduras? And he says, I think you're going to know. So I go back and he hasn't said anything, so I go back in on Monday, and my flight's out Tuesday morning. He says, what did you decide? I said, I'm going back. And he said, I think you made the right decision. He said, I can't see any reason for you to stay. And I started seeing a lot of improvement, and that was God working. And I just gave you my life story in short. So you'll have to find me afterwards so I can tell you more stories, because it's really exciting to watch God working. I will jump over and show you a video because I want to bring you into life into Honduras. Now you've heard my side of the story. I'm going to bring you in, though, so you can see not just what God's been doing in my life, but I'm going to take you on a trip with me through the city. San Pedro Sula is 1 million people. And our church is downtown. On Wednesdays, I go straight through downtown. I go on 5th Avenue, and 3rd Avenue is the city square. So I drive down 5th Avenue on my way to church to pick up kids. And Medina is a lot of people in a small space. And let me give you an idea of the houses where most of my kids live. The size, probably, and maybe even less, from where your little choir loft area is. Think of that area to the piano and to the wall. That would be a room. That would be a house. And then a lot of them will have then a shower and bathroom facilities out back that they're sharing with neighbors in a passageway. That's life. That's normal life. And so you can have an idea of what I'm dealing with. But I'm going to just get quiet and let you see the video, and then I'll share more of what God's doing.
Hi everybody, my name is Ruth Coleman, and I'm here outside of my apartment in the city of San Pedro Sula, Honduras, where I've been serving for the last 6 years now. I grew up in a pastor's home and was saved at a young age, and from a child I desired to be a missionary. When I was in 8th grade, I gave my life to serve God, but I had no idea what that would look like. It definitely was not the hot and humid city of San Pedro Sula, but I'm so glad that God does not go by my plans, because I have told him over and over again how thankful I am that he put me here in this city in his perfect spot for me. And I want to share that with you, so come along with me, fasten your seatbelts, and I'm going to take you on a tour through the life and ministry that God has given me here. As I drive through the city, I see so many interesting things. There are usually people begging at every stoplight, sometimes kids sent by their parents, sometimes elderly people, and sometimes guys juggling machetes or balls of fire. I often also spot coffee drying on the streets. We are headed now to the Fuente Church, which is located in the populous neighborhood of Medina. Before we get there, though, I need to stop and pick up some of my kiddos. My route might only include 3 stops, but I generally have to plan an extra half hour into my journey, since I can pick up as many as 8 kiddos, and many times I have to wake them up and wait for them to splash down with some water and put on clean clothes. Let's see how many. Hola. Hola Jenny, ¿cómo está?
Bien.
Muy bien. Okay. Vamos esto. Our church just celebrated its 15-year anniversary last December, and we have about 30 to 40 people attending, at least half of which are my kiddos and teens. As our church grows, we have begun the lengthy process of obtaining our legal identity as an established church in Honduras. By now you've guessed that I spend a lot of my week working with the children and teens of the church. Not only do I teach Sunday school and a combined class on Wednesdays that can include anyone from 5 to 15 years old, but I am regularly ministering to my kiddos throughout the week. This plays out in a variety of ways, leading a monthly Bible study for the older girls, planning youth activities, and teaching Spanish literacy classes. Around 12% of Hondurans do not know how to read, but a few years ago I realized that in my group of church kiddos, the statistic was over 50% for illiteracy. Burdened by the fact that my kiddos could not read the Bible, I began 2 separate literacy classes. I'm also actively discipling them as we meet each week for class. During the past year, God has given me opportunities to take on a more active role in discipling the women of our church. I have been meeting with a few of the ladies to study the Bible together, and Maria Conover and I have begun planning monthly fellowships for the ladies as we strategically focus on encouraging these ladies to grow in the Word and equipping them to serve. So music is another major part of my ministry here in Honduras, and we are in my neighborhood headed back to my house right now because most of my piano students come there for lessons. The majority of them are youth from the Faro Church, which is the church that has helped plant Fuente, and the church where I hold a piano recital every year at Christmas. My burden is to train up church pianists for both the Faro and Fuente churches, and I'm excited because this year, one of my older students from Faro has been able to accompany the congregation with a few easier hymns she has learned. So we're arriving back at my house right now, and we are in luck because I see the power is on. That means I can teach piano lessons today. God is holy. God is worthy of our praise. God is worthy of our sacrifice. As I tell my kiddos, sacrifice doesn't mean it will always be easy, but if you sell out everything to serve Him, you'll find that He outgives every sacrifice you've made. So if Jesus is calling you to go, then go. Jesus is worth it.
So you have the heat outside, and now you have visited Honduras, and so you just feel like home. And you can come visit me if you want, because I have a guest room that does have an air conditioner in the guest room. And I'm going back in 26 days to Honduras. I just came back for a 3-month furlough. Keep it short because I work with kids, and they were already, Hermana Ruth. One of them I was texting her in July for her birthday. And she said, so when are you coming back? And I said, well, I'm going to come back end of September. It's going to pass really fast. And she says, well, for you, it's going to pass really fast, but for me, it's going to be 1,000 years waiting for you. So I left them my last Sunday in Honduras before furlough. I put 3x5 cards up on the wall for each Sunday that I'm away, and I had a little verse or a note for them to read each Sunday so they can know that I am planning to come back. I know there's that, oh, she's forgotten about us, she's abandoned us. There's that when you have kids that don't get a lot of love, there's that clinging. I want that attention. I want that consistency in knowing people. And so I don't want them that church is about Hermana Ruth, but to know that here's someone who loves them with God's love, and that I haven't forgotten. I'm still praying for them. So sent them different messages, written some of the notes. I'm praying for you this week, so just to encourage them. But it's been really exciting to have been back here in the States because it's really cool to see how the church goes on without you. And I've been praying, so earlier this year I was praying about who can I have to help with the kids, because we don't have a lot of people in our church. Our church has 30 to 40 people. Think half of those are kids. Think about 20 of them being kids. And so then of the adults, who can help? Who can read so they can study the Bible to teach the lessons? Who's biblically qualified? Who knows enough, who's mature enough in their faith to become teachers? And so those kind of challenges working through, and I'm just praying who could be an option. Back in May, and back up, my focus has been I'm training these children to become the future teachers and leaders of the church, but I don't want to wait till they are old enough to be the teachers. I need help now. And so I'm praying, and so in May, I have the ladies' meeting, and for the first half of the year, I was in charge. Then my coworkers, Maria, said, I will plan the snack and the location. You just prepare to share the word. And so we kind of made that agreement. And so in May, we have the ladies' outing. And before I jumped into the passage, the verse that I wanted the ladies to look at, all of us together, I said, I like to start out with questions. And so I had about two or three questions. What makes a house a home was one of them. And then I said, okay, so I have another question. If you could trade places with a person for 1 month, who would you change places with? And people are going around and saying different names. And then one lady says, Hermana Ruth. And I'm looking at her like, why do you want to change places with me? And she says, because of her work with the children. And I heard that and I said, I have my answer. I have my answer. And so I've been watching as I've been away these past 2 months. And it's been so exciting. So we've been texting back and forth, and she'll send me the pictures of the kids. But I've also seen her, how she's been jumping in. And 1 week, the gentleman in our church who normally takes a machete and is chopping down the grass in our church parking lot area where the kids play, his wife has been struggling with cancer, and she's been doing really poorly here recently, so he's been spending a lot of time at home caring for her and hasn't been able to come as much out to church. And so the grass was growing, and all of a sudden I see pictures, and one of the kids videoed and they sent me a 6-minute video of her in charge of all these boys that were using machetes to chop the grass and gathering everything up and putting them in trash bags. I don't think the machetes are that sharp, don't worry there. But she's seeing the needs and she's just jumping in. And I watched at Vacation Bible School, you saw how many kids I fit in my car. She comes to Vacation Bible School in June, and she takes a taxi from her neighborhood, brings all of the kids that are her neighbor kids, in a little taxi, like a 4-door sedan. So not very much space. I at least have an SUV, so I have a little space in the back. Then if we can't fit all in the seat, we jump into the trunk area, and we just fill up all the space in my car. She comes in this little taxi, and I just watched child after. She had about 10 kids pile out of this taxi. I was very impressed, but she brought all these kids, and I thought, she brought her neighbor kids. That tells me about her heart for kids. It tells me it's not that they want to come with her. It's not just another kid inviting, oh, come to my church, we're gonna have a fun time. That's a lot easier. It's her. That tells you she has an ongoing relationship with these kids. And this afternoon, I check my phone, and I have this message from this one girl. I didn't get it in time. And she sent me this message. She says, where are the extra cups? Because I give my kids, we go through plastic cups so much, like the throwaway plastic cups. We go through them, or the paper cones. We go through them so fast with all these kids at church. And so I've started buying plastic cups, and I Sharpie their name. And once you've been coming faithfully to church for enough time, you get a cup with your name on it. So she had sent me a message this morning saying, where are the extra cups? We've got 4 or 5 kids that have been coming faithfully the last several weeks, and we need cups for them. And then she sent me a message later and said, we found them. Those kids that have been coming faithfully are ones that Irene brought to VBS. And she has been bringing them to church with her while I've been gone. It's been so exciting. And I got materials given to me in Spanish so I can use for training teachers. I'm excited to go back. But it's exciting to see what God's doing to grow our church. And here's God putting in Irene's heart a love for kids too. And he's meeting that need. So I work with the women. That's really honestly something that's more recent. I've mostly in the past focused on the kids, but just I've been there long enough that I'm starting to have those closer relationships with the women now. And so I've been working with the women, then working with the children. I'm teaching Wednesdays. I teach New Testament, and then Sundays for Sunday school I get Old Testament. Helps on Sundays because I have someone else that helps me with Maria Conover helps with the little kids, and so I get the older kids so I can go a little bit more deeply as we're going through the Old Testament. Literacy, I started out, I had a girl, I was doing English outreach classes with our church, and that was, my coworkers had already had that in place when I moved to Honduras, and so I'm teaching the beginner English class, and I'm seeing, we've got kids coming to our church that they can't read, and I'm thinking, and there's one girl, and I called her my mini-me. I was just watching her, and she can't read, and I'm thinking, if she doesn't learn how to read, she's gonna end up doing what her mom does to gain income. I don't want that. And so I started teaching her, and then with COVID, things changed up. She moved out of the city, moved about 2 hours away, but I started with this fresh batch of kids after COVID, and lots of them did not know how to read. And so I've started teaching in smaller groups, so I'm not catching all of the kids. I'm working with the older ones, and then I'll go down to some of the younger ones. But I have a 12-year-old, well, she just turned 13. But when I started, she didn't know how to read. Just so you can get age, I'm teaching 9 to 12-year-olds how to read. It's not 7 and 8-year-olds, it's not 6, 7, 8, it's 9 through 12-year-olds that don't know how to read. And I'm watching them grow and thinking, just in general life, they need to be able to read, to be able to survive and be able to find employment. But here I am in Wednesday class and then Sunday school, and I'm saying, you need to read your Bibles, and they can't read. Well, how do I expect them to have growth if they can't read, and they can't read in the Word? And I've been very intentional with them and saying, okay, you're the future in Mundaroot, you're the future deacon. Not that I can call out what they're going to be, what God's will for them is, but encouraging them because I want them to know that there's potential. We see potential in them, and encourage them towards that. But just being very intentional to training them up, teaching them how to read, then just, when Jesus had his disciples and this whole discipleship thing, there was formal, there was informal. And so it's that life on life, that's that. So I'm informally teaching them during church classes, but then I've got them coming during the week and we're learning how to read. And so then we're going through the book of John and they're asking questions. And I'm going through and helping them to come up with the questions, but we're making life interesting. So when we get to, I finished with John 11 right before I came back from furlough, for furlough. And so we're looking at how the high priest was talking, and there was this verse that mentions Rome and the fear of Rome. And I said, well, who were the Romans? And so we talked about that, and we talked about the crucifixion, and we just happened to have our VBS thing set up and decorations, and they had these great wooden poles that we had for the color for the teams. And so they were set up, and so I put a chair and I stood up on there and I said, okay, so we're gonna imagine this is what it was like to be on the cross, and talking about that and how they would make it so that they had to try to lift themselves up to be able to breathe. And so I had the kids, okay, so if you're standing like this, how long can you stand on the balls of your feet? Just trying to give them an idea, not that that's a perfect example, but just trying to get them to think, what is this passage saying? And so how long can you stand like that? Okay, so if you're on the cross, how is that gonna hurt if you're trying to breathe? And just having them trying to help them think through what we're learning. But it's just this intentional, I'm teaching them, they come in, they turn on the lights, they open the water, the outside. You don't do that here in the States, but where the water connects to the main line, we turn that on and off so we don't have leaking. So they know how to turn that on. They know how to turn it off. They know how to, we don't have light switches, which hopefully will get fixed when we get our remodel done. So they know the circuit breaker. They know how to flip all the lights on through the circuit breaker. And they sit at the chairs, grab our Bibles, and we sit down. And so I'm training them in ways that they're able to, but with a focus of training them to be the future leaders in the church. And so getting them involved as much as I can right now, but making them think. And so, are you reading your Bible now that you're learning to read? Are you reading your Bible? I told a couple people, this backfired on me because I like to get them involved with the adults and interacting with adults. And so I asked them to find out from 3 of the men in the church, and we only have 5 men in our church. I said, here's these 3 men. I want you to go up to them next time we're at church, and I want you to ask them when they read their Bible. I'm thinking what time of day they read their Bible, something like that, just to get, or how do they read, some kind of answer like this, so they can get that interaction and starts a discussion, and the men can encourage these kids. Well, they go and ask. They misheard me, and so they asked, when did you start reading your Bible? And all 3 of the men had gotten saved in their mid-20s. So their answer was their mid-20s when they started reading their Bibles. And so the kids all come back to me, and Emmanuel, he started reading his Bible when he was 25. Okay, let's go back. We're going to damage control. And so when did they get saved? And then when did they start reading their Bible? So we'll go back to that. But just trying to get them involved with the church. And so all you all who are asking me to sign things, you're getting the children involved with people. And that's kind of my goal. And mentoring them with my piano students as well. They come to my house for piano lessons, but we get discussions. So a lot of them are from the other church, and so it gives me opportunity to say, hey, Mother's Day is coming up. Maybe you could play the piano, and maybe you could ask the Sunday school teacher if you can teach the song to the children, and they can sing along with you. Just trying to encourage them. I'm not there at the church to be able to do anything, but I can encourage them for serving as they're coming to my house. And so that is my life and ministry in Honduras. And I didn't ask Pastor about this, but does anybody have any questions? Things that you're curious about with life in Honduras, or anything that I've talked about that's piqued interest? Question back there.
You referenced in the video a couple times the instability of electricity in Honduras. Can you elaborate why or how often that is?
They have not done anything really to modernize in the last 20-something years. And so actually, with this year being an El Nino year, which means it was a lot hotter and drier, we had in May and June, we had rationing because they don't have enough electricity to cover all of the demand in the country. And so when they would ration, 150,000 homes were going out for 2 or 3 hours because that's the amount of energy our country lacks. So we'll have power outages that will sometimes be just a neighborhood. They'll have planned ones. We'll have unplanned ones that might be the whole country or parts of the country and parts of neighboring countries. And you just never know. When the power goes out and it's not planned, you text people and find out how far the city it affects. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
How do the children address you? What name do they have for you?
Hermana Ruth. Hermana is sister, so Hermana Ruth. Yeah.
Is food fairly easy to access?
Yes, yes. I have a Walmart, so it's not it's smaller than a regular grocery store, and they don't have they have food, they have some basic clothes, and they have some basic household things, but like if you want to buy a pen or a pencil at Walmart, you can get it during school season, but you might not get it the rest of the year. I have Walmart, I have a couple groceries. I live in a city. I have a couple grocery stores near me, and I can get pretty much anything I need. So, yeah. Yes.
Kind of platforming off that, then what would be your favorite, I guess, Honduran dish?
So the baleada is a flour tortilla with refried beans and scrambled eggs and this white cheese, which is kind of salty and dry. And then you can put avocado or sour cream on top, and it's just delicious. Yes.
Why can't the kids read?
So there's multiple factors. I have several of my kids are Mosquito. They come from La Mosquitia, which is Eastern Honduras. Eastern Honduras. So a lot of them, when they come over, they have to either take a boat or fly over a lagoon and then go to Ceiba and then come to the city. And they come a lot looking for work. But since they're very remote, I have a kid in my church that doesn't have a birth certificate. So I tell him he's my ghost child. He doesn't exist. So he's not in school. He's 8 years old, not in school. But he's from La Mosquitia, and that's just life in La Mosquitia. So a lot of them are coming from over there, and so they haven't, not that they don't have schools, but it's not always the priority or accessible. Then you had kids with COVID that the one girl who just turned 13, she missed school for 2 years. School was, for the public schools, they sent you your homework on WhatsApp and you filled it out and sent pictures back on WhatsApp to your teacher. And that was school for a year or two. So some of those factors. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding your children, what is your relationship with their parents?
I have a decent relationship with them. Our challenge comes in, I try to be very careful about not having the kids come too much to the church, because they'll be like, oh, when can we come? Can we come today? And they want to come a lot because they just have free time, and so the kids want. But then occasionally there's a couple parents that, oh, your kids are coming too much to church, and so then they'll just not let them come for a couple weeks at all. So I have that, but mostly I have a good relationship with them.
For salvation or reaching the families, is that something that's happening?
Trying. That has been the biggest challenge, and I guess a prayer request would be for the parents. And we're just, as a church, trying to encourage, hey, bring your kids to church, bring your parents to church, not bring your kids to church, bring your parents to church. There's the challenge with work and people working on Sundays, or that they work 6 days a week and Sunday's their only day off, and so that's a challenge. But there's a couple that have come when their kids have gotten baptized, or a couple that have come for Children's Day or for the Christmas program, but not seeing it as, oh, this is something for me to come on a consistent basis. Yes, sir.
How's the government with sharing the gospel?
Right now we're doing okay. And I don't know how much to think about it. I hear some of my friends in Honduras getting a little bit nervous because they see Nicaragua, and in Nicaragua they have been, their president has imprisoned or exiled some Catholic priests, and so they see some of that happening. It gets them worried that it might cross over to us, but so far it's totally open. Any other questions?
What's the average income?
So minimum wage would be, so minimum wage varies depending on what business you're in or what industry. I want to say something like, so I don't remember exact numbers, but I want to say something like $400 a month to $600 would be minimum wage. And you've got 70% of the country that lives in poverty. So, yeah. You could come find me at my table if you have other questions, but thanks for letting me share tonight.
Thank you. That was so helpful, wasn't it? I mean, when I shared with Ruth what we're doing, I know it was a little different for her, of just gathering information, but it has a way of making an impression. when we think about her and what she's doing and how she's interacting over there. So thank you so very, very, very much. Go ahead and go back to your table if you would, please. And we'll go ahead and be dismissed tonight. Would you stand with me, please? All right, Brother Jamie, would you pray for us?